Yeah, and it's interesting. Panasonic Tooth put this on a comment on a Gang of Four um, episode because again, this is like a bastard, you know, third nephew down from Gang of Four sounds.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's not the next limb over,
but,
but it's in the family tree
yeah.
for sure.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name is John. His name
It's a new
is
one.
Andy.
All right.
The tick tock on my clock, you know my swatch is ticking. A finger licking on my fingers count the suckers vicking. Should I be wishing that I'm sitting while the other's missing? The rhyme is hitting now, I'm dissing all the suckers hissing. More on that later. But first, because it's Friday, oh yes it is. Even if you're watching in black and white, it really is. Because it's Friday, we have a special episode every week where we listen to a track selected by one of our wonderful viewers. And this is no exception. So, Panasonic Tooth, they dropped a comment in our Gang of Four Anthrax episode, another viewer's request, was outstanding song. And they suggested the band My Disco, and then slapped down two whole albums. So I had to go away and listen to them. And I thought I'd just start with the first of the two, which I did, and I selected a track from that. So, by way of Panasonic Tooth, we're going to listen to A Marker by My Disco.
Okay.
Um, I think
Marker.
we're both fairly unaware of My Disco, not as a concept, but as a band.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I've never heard of them. I will say Panasonic Tooth, you see that name one time, you read it to yourself, it's going to stick with you. And I've seen it throughout some of our episodes, and they're usually weighing in on some pretty interesting choices, whether it's a track that you suggested me or in this case, a viewer request. So I tend to trust their judgment, from what I've extrapolated from our interactions thus far. So I'll be interested to hear from this My Disco, a band that I've never heard of, and this track A Marker. So yeah, let me give this thing a go. And because I assume you've listened to this song, but you, like you had suggested, you don't really have much background with these guys either, right?
Oh no, so all I did was totally blind. I downloaded the first of the two albums. He suggested two albums, which was Cancer and um, what's the second album called? Paradise. Yeah,
Okay.
he just put those two down. So I downloaded the first album and I listened to it all the way through a few times, and I thought, well, let's start at the top. So
Right on. Okay. Well, if you stomached it more than one time as a whole album, then I've got high hopes for this. So let me go off and give this track a spin, and I'll come back and let you, Panasonic Tooth, and everybody else out there know what I've thought. My Sharona. I don't know why, but when he hits that octave thing, that do, I want to say My Sharona. I didn't think I was gonna get shades of that in the opening salvo of the song, but that's interesting. Also, bass just really thick, chunky, uh, and I'm digging it. Sounds good. Interested to see where this goes. Let's listen to the sound of guitar. I've already noticed. Okay, we're 45 seconds, a little over, and I'll take it back a little bit to hear what the lead singer has to say here. But an observation is every 15 seconds something is changing in the song. From 0 to 15, from 15 to 30, 30 to 45, and now at the 45-second mark, we've now have this transition or change in the way things are presented. So it's interesting. That almost has to be like planned to hit on that sort of time threshold. Everything is done in these like integers of 15 seconds, which is an interesting choice to make. I wonder if that is going to if that can hold true throughout the rest of this 3-minute track. But it's interesting thus far. I wonder if that's going to be the formula for how this thing unfolds throughout. All right, as promised, we're going to take it back a little bit. Listen to what this young man has to say.
Vile disposition.
Vile disposition.
A name called to remission. This circumstance. Had it have been without contention, then lesser relation. Certainties. Never hesitate to discredit their guarantees. Reference to an X contained and renamed. Reference to an X contained. I am a fractured statistic.
I love the way that stabby guitar just came in here, and again, I think that was a 15-second interval. Yeah, this is really, I get very spoken word kind of delivery. I can't really. There's not like a cohesive, linear narrative to his lyrics, so it's going to be hard for me to piece any meaning behind this together. So I'm going to probably rely on John for some help there. Hopefully he found that in the homework he did. But yeah, the drums are very reliant on that hi-hat throughout a lot of this. I mean, it switches up a little bit here and there, but that's obviously this mainstay in the drum motif. And I love the way that guitar was introduced with that stabby, kind of insistent sound.
Contained. I am a fractured statistic.
Oof. Just beat the clock on that one. Yeah, that was an interesting song with a lot of like musical decisions that I enjoyed. My only gripe is this gripe could be very temporary, but the lyrics didn't have this sort of like cohesive message behind them. I'm sure that with context, that gripe can easily be removed. So I'm not really gonna, etch that one in stone or at least even permanent marker. Uh, the 15-second intervals is interesting, but also formulaic. Like I was every time something changed, I'd check the clock and it would have been in somewhere ending in a 15 or a 0. And that's the way it was kind of moving throughout, which became that they were coming, that these changes were coming, became predictable. What they would do when those changes coming, not necessarily, or at least very much less so. So credit to them for not being like, I know what they're going to do. I just knew that they were going to do something based on the kind of predictable blueprint that this showed itself to have as it progressed. But that doesn't really take anything away from the enjoyment of it. Also, like, I loved the sounds that the guitar was tinkering with in this. The stabby motif even had, like, it evolved and changed as it progressed. And then it ends up going into this super muff, like, distortion that I didn't anticipate hearing. And it's a really interesting way to end a song, too, with maybe, like, the loudest or the most muscular version or portion being what kind of like seals the like, or ties the bow and kind of seals the deal on the song at the end. It's just like, that's, I liked it, but it's just, you don't often hear that super loud nature as a way to sort of send things off. Oftentimes things come back down and kind of like bring the temperature down a little bit, right? It doesn't always happen. It isn't always the case. I'm sure there's other songs that end similarly, but it's not the most tried and true method, which is, more hats off to them for, coloring outside the lines or whatever. Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting song that kind of tinkered with deploying different sounds and portions at these like 15-second intervals. Which is really interesting. I'd like to learn more about this band and kind of where they're from and what they would be considered from like a genre standpoint, and like maybe even like who influenced this this kind of sound. I doubt it was the Knack or My Sharona, but for some reason it exists in the song, or at least that opening portion. At least it does in my head. But yeah, a lot to learn about this band, a lot to dig into, right? I'm definitely intrigued. So to learn more and go down that road, let's head back to John.
Andrei Tarkovsky, he's back. So you better listen to A Marker by My Disco. Please tell Panasonic Tooth and all the other techers out there what you thought of it.
This is an interesting first listen to a band, and I really liked what was on offer. There is something that stuck out to me though. This theme, this obvious blueprint, as the song played out, and I kind of observed the timestamps, which I'll get to in my my reaction. But overall, I really did thoroughly enjoy this band and their sound. It sounds like they have a sound that should be on this channel, if the truth of the matter, because they're doing a lot of stuff that we've heard similar things by other artists do, so that are on this channel. So now, if that bass that starts off this track was a specific variety of peanut butter, surely it would be extra chunky. This thing has some real body to it, almost disjointedly meanders and struts its way over an otherwise vacant soundscape. And I think it was probably the second run through of this, motif that it's playing, when it hits that octave jump on the pattern. My brain just went, My Sharona, because it's for some reason it's just like that. The Knack does something very similar in that song, and these are two very different songs and sounds, but for some reason just that movement had me thinking of my song My Sharona, and I can't really shake it. At around the 15-second mark, and that, go ahead, John.
Couple of things completely. I will definitely have forgotten about this by the time you finish. So, um, yeah, I used to work with a guy that was his ringtone, and he absolutely swore by that. So, my Sharona. And I've got somewhere, and I can't remember who it is. It's this weird band which I've never heard of before or since. A Japanese band, I believe, with female singers. It could be androids or whatever, and they do a version of Psycho Killer by Talking Heads, where the main riff sounds just like my Sharona. It's
Huh.
very odd and
That is
interesting.
odd.
I'll try and dig it out. I'll try and find it, but that just made me think of that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, dig around it if you find it, share that with me. So at around the 15-second mark, the bass cuts out and is supplanted by the drums and a dissonant sounding guitar joining the mix with a crash and twanged strum that then takes shape in the form of timed hi-hat strikes and a picked motif. Um, 15 seconds is like the thing throughout the song. Every 15 seconds, something changes. There's a development. Um, because then at the 30-second mark, the bass rejoins and the drums switch up to a more proper full beat, all while the guitar continues to pick through its motif. And all of this sounds like it could be the soundtrack to some sort of dark carnival funhouse. Um, the guitar cuts out 15 seconds later, while the drums shift the focus back to the hi-hats and the bass chugs, and we get our first glimpse into the lyrics of this song as the singer, with a near spoken word style of delivery, provides the opening line, which is, I believe, vile disposition. And as the bass thuds, the drums keep chipping away at the hi-hats, the singer adds a name called to remission, and then he drops the next lines. This circumstance, had it have been without contention, then less a relation. And then certainties never hesitate to discredit their guarantees. Reference to an X contained and renamed. Reference to an X contained. Um, this is not a very cut and dry black and white narrative that we have going on here. But it's interesting. And there is this I don't know, this sense of feeling disillusioned by, I would assume, treatment from another party. Now, that's as much as I've gotten, and I'll add a little bit later on when I get it to the end of the reaction. But I thought it was a really thought provoking chunk of lyrics, and I left a lot to kind of like comb through and frankly return to, because there's no way you're listening to this void of any context and going, yep, I nailed that one down. So yeah, I thought that was nonetheless very interesting. um then we get a nice little drum roll that gives way to this insistent stabbing guitar motif as the singer proclaims to be a fractured statistic, which again is a very interesting line and way to sort of designate yourself or maybe how you feel in the wake of an interaction. And then the guitar shifts from that stabbing approach to this sort of more explosive sound that still possesses some of that repeated insistence that the stabbing, but it wasn't as, I guess, like high maybe. But just around the 2 minute mark, the drums and bass cut out. Again, sticking with this 15-second interval, we landed 2 minutes. The bass and drums cut out, leaving the aforementioned guitar to solely populate the soundscape. And this persists for about 15 seconds before the drums return with this whole new beat that I don't think we've heard yet in the song. And again, for another 15 seconds, that guitar continues to needle away along with this newly injected drum motif. Another roll of the drums appears, again signaling a shift in the song. On the other side of it, we get treated to just the rhythm section, kind of grooving along for, you guessed it, about 15 seconds. And then in comes some super distorted guitar work. I mean, this is like 90s super muff pedal, like very, very fuzzy, very chugging, and it takes us all the way until the end of the song. Probably lasted about 15 seconds. Now you could call the track formulaic in how the band approached each section and the timing thereof. but nonetheless, the choices made at each of these impasses or these predictably timed turns were fun and interesting. So while the blueprint was easily predictable, what they did with the rooms that they built within it was, not as easily predictable what they would do and the choices that they would make. For instance, ending a song on the loudest, most muscular portion with all that distortion is a very interesting choice. Usually, not, and this isn't all applying, but usually songs like to come back down to earth a little bit or settle you back in or repeat the motif from the beginning, thus bookending the presentation. This wasn't that. And it was very like, instead of calming us, it got our energy and blood flowing. That's an interesting choice, one I didn't see coming. That it lasted for and happened with 15 seconds left, not surprising at all. But those are the differences in the predictability factors here. So yeah, interesting stuff. It was musically, I really liked it. This odd little number. The lyrics and the delivery thereof, I could kind of like, well, not the delivery of I could take or leave. It didn't add anything, but it didn't take anything away from the song either. But I did find that the lyrical content to be interesting if I did, in fact, catch it correctly, which I hope I did given the spoken word presentation. I'm not quite certain of the subject matter either, which could also be playing into my discounting of the vocal delivery, but the narrative captured within as well. All I could piece together just based on the assumption and not certainty was that it felt again about someone disillusioned by a circumstance in which he was made to feel like less than or treated less than a human and more like a number or a statistic. I mean, he says that, what is it, a fractioned statistic or whatever he referred to himself as earlier in the song. Yes, a fractured statistic. Interesting way to look at yourself, and it makes you think like you're just a number to somebody or a commodity or something like that. Nonetheless, I'm really intrigued by the band's sound and the style, and even somewhat obviously the meaning of the song, given my the sort of the broad presentation of the lyrics here. So anyway, tell me more about these guys, John, because I am interested in them.
Thanks for that, Andy. I didn't actually write anything down about what I thought about this, but I've had a bit of a listen to it. I think this album, for me and my taste, has certain boxes that are ticked.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's a bit of a grower, and I would say the first three or four tracks I really liked first time round, and the second time round it was like another couple more I really liked. So yeah, it's definitely growing on me. It has got this great sound, which is an amalgamation of different things. You've got some of that almost like dance punky. I mean, I'll talk the first iteration of sort of early 80s stuff mixed in with this post-hardcore and this sort of almost math rocky thing going on. And the delivery is kind of an updated version of some of that new wave sort of delivery where they sort of speak where it's very serious, stuff that's going on, proclamations that are so obtuse that no one really understands what anyone's saying. But yeah, I thought this was fascinating. And the whole album, actually, the first track's a real belter, but I picked this track for a specific reason because it tickled me. And I'll cut on to that in a sec. So, My Disco, formed in 2003 in Melbourne, Australia, by brothers Ben and Liam Andrews, who are actually originally from London, and Rohan Ribeiro. They've been described, or other labels foisted upon them, as industrial, post-punk, math rock, and minimalist, whatever that means. Their name comes from a song by Big Black, the Steve Albini hardcore band. The track My Disco appears on the Headache EP. So Liam Andrews, bass, electronics, vocals, Ben Andrews, guitar, and Rowan Ribeiro, drums and percussion. So the band started going. They formed their own record label, Crashing Jets, to enable them to release their own music. So their debut, I think they put something out on a cassette, but their debut single on 7-inch, Collapse of an Erratic Lung, was in November 2003. And then that followed with a 10-inch, gotta love a 10-inch, Language and Numbers. And then they set out on their first Australian tour. And they became pretty quickly locally within the Antipodean area as being really full-on tour ethic. They extensive tours in really remote areas of Australia and Southeast Asia,
Cool.
going to places where most people wouldn't bother going. So they're probably putting in the long hours and the hard yards. So then they had a hiatus due to Liam Andrews' diagnosis of Hodgkin's disease,
Oof.
which then influenced their debut album, Cancer, which was released in 2006. So the album did mark a bit of a change from the previous releases, a change of direction, further into sort of math rock and shifting towards this minimalist sound. Many of the song titles and lyrics refer to a general cancer diagnosis and treatment theme. That's where A marker comes in, obviously, in terms of diagnosis. Just to go through the tracks, there's only 8 of them. It's quite a short album as well. It's about 26 minutes. Perfect Protection, A marker, Calling Cure, Always Measure Weight, Pale, Patterns Surgical, Saint, ST. I don't think it's street. Administer a prosthetic dream, the tracks. So really sort of interesting. Obviously, the guy's been through quite a bit at a fairly young age as well.
Even with that information that you just provided, the lyrics, now I understand why he feels the way he does in this song, and the way he worded some of that stuff. So yeah, that little bit of context right there can go a long way in helping shape your opinion of the lyrics. So there you have it.
And I'm pretty sure, I don't know much about Hodgkin's disease, but I'm pretty sure it's genetic. So it'll be a marker that indicates whether you're susceptible or not within your
Gotcha.
code. So a couple of reviews. Wax Conspiracy. That squeezing 8 songs into a slender 24 minutes, My Disco's Cancer is a jarring, incredibly noisy record that marries mechanical, angular guitars with a superbly tight rhythm section. Sputnik did a sort of more developed review. They wrote, while their earlier sound focuses on complex time signatures and interesting song structures, their more recent work has seen them adopt a minimalist approach to songwriting. Cancer is the first full length from My Disco, clocking in at just 25 minutes with 8 songs. So that's when you press stop and start. Cancer gets straight to the point with its dissonant guitar riffs, catchy angular bass lines, and strangely danceable but technical drumming. Bassist Liam Andrews contributes in vocals in half-spoken, half-yelled technique, but they will regularly occur only for a few seconds of each song, usually consisting of little more than a few lines. Rather than being a band where the instruments exist to back up the vocalist, the vocals almost always feel like the least important element of the music. More often than not, the band are happy to consistently repeat a groove and stay locked into the rhythms they're playing for minutes before any instance of vocals will appear. Just say on the first track, it's the last 20-30 seconds you get a bit of vocals. That's it. And that's sort of 4-minute song. So it's really cool. Keeping the theme of the album's title, this song has a very sterile, precise, and clinical feel, which is catchy and danceable, but never entirely pleasant. The production of the album is extremely dry and analog, allowing for the perfect amount of space between the instruments and keeping with the sterile feel of the songs. Never overstaying its welcome, Cancer is the perfect length for My Disco to say what they need to say and then be done with it. Tight, focused, dancey, and dissonant, Cancer is a truly excellent release from a band who's surely going places. So yeah, there is that really nice sort of feeling of space within the music within it as well. And when it's right, it sounds really good. I think it's sort of like the Femmes' first album, has that sort of space between the instruments as well.
Every description that you've quoted thus far has been pretty accurate to my one experience listening to this one song. I mean, a really tight, interesting rhythm section, this dissonant guitar that kind of challenges the listener to either enjoy it or be almost repulsed by it, because at times that stabbing of that guitar is so at first I was like, oh cool, and then by the 5th or 6th stab I'm like, okay, like what? And then it changes. Of course, the 15-second marker comes around and it changes around, probably an appropriate amount of time for it just to get the listener to question it before it then evolves into whatever the next part is. So everything that they said was completely accurate. It was a spot on assessment of these guys' sound. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Panasonic Tooth put this on a comment on a Gang of Four um, episode because again, this is like a bastard, you know, third nephew down from Gang of Four sounds.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's not the next limb over, but it's in the family tree
yeah,
for sure.
definitely. Lyrics, not a lot of them. File a disposition, a name call to remission. This circumstance had it have been without contention, then less a relation. Certainties never hesitate to discredit their guarantees. Reference to an X contained and renamed. Reference to an X contained. I am a fractured statistic. And then it goes into the sort of breakdown. And when it changes course, and you may not get this, but and it starts again. It's almost like almost a completely different song at this point.
Yeah.
That bass line just reminded me hugely of Word Up by Cameo. Which
No, no, I can see that now. I
voice.
do know that song. Yes, I could totally see.
And
Yeah,
obviously it doesn't go to it goes into
yeah.
something else, but really funny. It just made me laugh out loud first time I was listening to it. When I was walking the dog and he looked at me like, what the hell are you laughing at? No, girl, am I sniffing? So yeah, really cool. So in 2007, the band recorded their second album entitled Paradise with Electric Audio with Steve Albini.
Oh,
An
wow.
extensive world tour in support of the album followed, including a performance at South by Southwest, isn't it? Yeah, I've
Yeah,
just
yeah,
worked out.
yeah.
That's me.
Don't worry.
Austin, Texas. In 2010, the band released their third album, Little Joy, once again with Steve Albini as engineer. The album received the Australian Independent Record, the AIR Award for Best Hard Rock or Punk Album in 2011. 2015, they released their fourth studio album entitled Severe. Severe was nominated and shortlisted for the final of the AMP Australian Music Prize. And in 2018, they recorded their fifth studio album
Oh,
um,
nice.
at the Einstudenter Neubauten studio in Berlin. It says here their most uncompromising recording to date. It was written over a 2-week period in Berlin in the winter of 2018, and the band decided to let their surroundings shape the sound of their new material. Oh God, I bet it's bleak. So yeah, and they're still going as far as I'm aware.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so they've really sort of like honed their sounds, and this is the beginning of it, as it were. This is their first album, so
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what else. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have a listen to some more albums and see where they go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought this was really interesting, and then you get the backstory about the reason why the album's called Cats and everything, and the shit he's been through. Obviously, just makes it more interesting as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. That added bit of context made my experience now that much better, and I'll go back and listen to it with that in mind. Um, Damn, yeah, I'd like to hear more from these guys too. I mean, we did last year. I think we did our little tour of Australia, and I was really flaunting some off
Yeah,
the beaten path bands from Australia. But it goes to show that, like, you got a pulse on some of the up and comers out of Australia. Here's a band that's been around since the early 2000s that play a lot of stuff adjacent to the stuff I listen to that didn't land in my lap for whatever reason. So Panasonic 2, thanks for the shout out on this one, man. I really enjoyed this track, and I look forward to checking out more from this band. And I love, John, that you took the bull by the horns and said we're going to start at the first album, so that now I can kind of measure everything up and also chart their evolution or progress as they grew as a band. So yeah, that's some really cool stuff, man.
all right, I shall wrap things up. Thanks, listening, Andy.
Mhm.
Thanks, Panasonic Tooth. Great shouts. Really interesting band, and really look forward to exploring more of their work. Folks out there, please tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button and drop some comments as well. Tell us what you think about this song, this band, this album. I'm sure there's people out there that are more familiar than either myself or Andy.
Yeah.
Also, any fans of Cameo, word up, please.
Launch the
Tell us what you
word.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, please, we'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do hop on board and join the fun train. There's plenty of room, particularly in the back carriages. If you want to get one of your tracks on a Friday episode, then just drop a comment in any of our episodes. If at least one of us doesn't know it, then we'll add it to the list. We will go through the list and we will get to it in the end.
Yeah.
Yes. That being said, though, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
We'll see you later, guys.